Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. We are already over halfway through the year and I am finally talking about all of my favorite books that I've read so far in 2021. So these are all the best romance books that I've read so far this year. These are pretty much all of my 4.5 and 5-star reads, and there are about 20 of them. I'm gonna first go into the best of the new 2021 releases and then go into the backlist books that I also love this year. It's actually a pretty even split between the new releases and the backlist books on my list. But before I get into basically my top 20 of 2021 so far, here are my top 3 favorite books that I read so far this year. If you watched my mid-year freakout book tag, you probably already know what my top favorite book that I've read in 2021 so far is, and that is Devil in Disguise by Lisa Kleypas. Lisa Kleypas is of course my queen of historical romance, and obviously I had to read her new release and I loved it so much. It was pretty much the perfect historical romance for me. We have a Scottish hero. It is the first Scottish hero from Lisa Kleypas. We also have a strong heroine who's been widowed and is now in charge of her late husband's company. These two click right from the start and you can totally tell how gone they are for each other. It's funny, it's steamy, the romance is so freaking beautiful. I loved Keir and Mirit so much. Keir is a total grumpy sweetheart of a hero. The things that he does for the woman that he's falling for, it just blows me away. So if you love historical romance, if you love Lisa Kleypas, you definitely need to read it. It is technically the last book in a series, but you could totally read it fine as a standalone. Number 2 on my list is Real by Kennedy Ryan. This is the first book in her new Hollywood romance series, and each book in the series is about a different couple. In this one we have a director hero and actress heroine. The heroine, Neva, is an up-and-coming actress and she has been waiting to finally be discovered, and she finally is by her hero Cannon. Cannon is directing this new biopic and Neva has been hired as the lead. So it's a little bit of a forbidden romance between a director and an actress, and the passion that these two have, not just for each other but for their work, for their talent. It was incredible. Kennedy Ryan's writing is so stunning in this one. The way she tells her stories, tells her romances, it is so incredible. Like every time I read her romances, I always believe in soulmates because of how she writes her romances, how she writes her characters who are just so utterly perfect for each other. This is a fantastic read. It's a really immersive read as well. We also get to read the script as Cannon and Neva are working on the film. Before I even read it, I knew I was gonna love it, and I truly do. And number 3 on my list is actually another historical romance, but this time quite an old one. It was published back in 1985 and it is Whitney, My Love by Judith McNaught. So this book is a little controversial. It is an old historical romance. Some scenes in this book are a little bit iffy, but I really love this one. It stole my heart and I was blown away when I read it earlier this year. It was also my first Judith McNaught book, and after reading this, I have become the biggest fan. In this historical romance, we have a Duke hero and a very non-conforming, non-traditional heroine. Whitney is loud, not afraid to say what she wants, and because of this, her father sends her away to France, and in France, that's where she meets Clayton, the Duke of Claymore, who pretty much on sight wants her. Clayton ends up bribing Whitney's father to make her his bride, but Whitney has no idea of this. And once everyone goes back to England, Clayton buys a house near where Whitney lives, and he pretends to not be a duke because he wants to woo her. He wants her to love him for him and not his power, not his title or money. And basically the whole book is Clayton trying to win Whitney's heart, and they are the cutest thing together. The banter between them was perfect. The way that Clayton just treasures Whitney, the way he's in awe of her and all of her sassiness. It was so great to read. I loved it all. I love these two characters, and this book is definitely one of my new favorite historical romances. And now for the rest of my top 20 in no particular order, starting with the new 2021 releases. People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This is her newest contemporary romance. I was a huge fan of Beach Read last year and I had such high hopes for this one, and it totally met them. I am a humongous sucker for Friends to Lovers, and this one was so good. There's so much humor, angst, tension, and emotion in this one. Poppy and Alex made for the perfect opposites attract couple. These two have been best friends since college, and they've gone on vacation every year, every summer together. Poppy is like your sunshiny, wanderlusty kind of girl, whereas Alex is very much a homebody. She's a wild child and he is not, and that's kind of why these two are so meant to be together. But 2 years ago, they kind of had a falling out and they haven't really talked to each other since. And Poppy sees this summer as her last chance to get her relationship with Alex fixed. They go on one last vacation together to get everything out in the open, because we all know how much these two already love each other and care for each other. I love Emily Henry's writing. I love her sense of humor. I love her character's sense of humor. The banter between Alex and Poppy was wonderful. I loved it. It was definitely a great follow-up to Beach Read, and I can't really decide which one of the two that I love more. Next is The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. This one was a wonderful slow burn romance, a slow burn office romance, enemies to lovers, fake dating, all these wonderful tropes wrapped up in this fantastic read. Lena, our heroine, needs a date to her sister's wedding in Spain, and her greatest enemy, her coworker Erin, offers to be that date. At first, she's like, absolutely not. We hate each other. Why would you ever offer to do this? But in the end, they have no choice and they're forced to pretend to be boyfriend and girlfriend while they're in Spain. So like I said, there is some slow burn here, some delicious slow burn. I thought it was the perfect pacing, and even without Erin's point of view, we could so clearly tell how much he actually wanted Lena, and he made for the perfect fake boyfriend for her. He sees this as his chance to actually make this relationship real. Lena's a great heroine. She is so much fun to read, if a little bit oblivious to Erin and his feelings, but that just made it more entertaining to read. I love the whole setting in Spain. It was a fantastic debut, and I cannot wait to read more from Elena. I also loved another popular book this year, It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This book is pretty much classic Tessa Bailey with some dirty talking steam, a grumpy hero who is pretty much totally obsessed with the heroine within a few chapters. It's also Schitt's Creek inspired, which is one of my favorite shows. This heroine Piper is inspired by Alexis. She's an heiress, a society girl, and an influencer who has been cut off by her parents. She gets a little bit crazy one night and is shipped off to her mother's hometown, this little cozy town by the sea, and that's where she meets our hero Brendan, who is a sea captain. These two could not be more different, could not have come from more different backgrounds, but they are so perfect together. I mean, there's literally a scene where Brendan decides to take Piper shopping and buys everything for her. He loves spoiling her, and who doesn't love a hero like that? Piper's whole character development here was so great. She starts to learn more about herself, what she wants in life, what she wants to do in life. She renovates a whole dive bar with her sister, which she's never done before. So she does a lot of growing up and a lot of self-discovery throughout the book. Make It Sweet by Kristen Callahan is also on my list. We've got a foodie romance. The hero is an ex-hockey player who loves to bake and cook, especially for the heroine. And the heroine is a famous actress who has just been killed off on her show. Lucian and Emma first meet when Emma decides to take a break and rent a little place at Lucian's grandmother's estate. And like I said, Lucian loves to bake. He is the baker and the cook for the estate, but Emma has no idea about this. She just sees him as someone who's very grumpy and surly and very hot. And the reason why Lucian is a humongous grump is because he can no longer play hockey anymore. He's pretty much lost his purpose in life and he's trying to recover from that. I was honestly surprised by how much emotion there was. I love the foodie aspect. I love the whole grumpy hero part, but there's a lot of depth to these characters as well. And also, if you love the Great British Baking Show, the Great British Bake Off, you definitely need to read this book. Lucian is pretty much the dream guy who loves to make pastries. A Lady of Brooksgrave Manor by Catherine Moon is also another favorite this year. This is a reverse harem romance. This was pretty much the first reverse harem romance that I read consciously. It's historical, paranormal, and erotic. Our heroes, our 5 heroes, are all different sorts of creatures, very interesting creatures. We have a sphinx shifter, a golem, an invisible invisible man, this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of character, and a classic vampire. This book is steamy. It is literally just full of steam, which was great because it was exactly what I was in the mood for and what I was looking for. I just love the concept of this one with the heroine who goes to work at this manor, at Rookscrape Manor, to basically become an escort for these different paranormal creatures. She ends up falling for them in the middle of all this monster smut. There's a little bit of action and suspense as well, especially towards the end. It's just a really, really great monster romance and reverse harem romance. I loved Lessons in Sin by Pam Godwin. This is a priest romance, a very, very forbidden romance. It's also got an age gap, a teacher-student romance. There are so many taboo things going on in this book, and I loved it. Even though Pam Godwin is known for her dark romances, I would not call this a dark romance. It's just a very taboo and a little bit kinky. The heroine Tinsley is sent away to this Catholic boarding school, and her teacher and basically the owner of this boarding school is our hero, Father Magnus. He's about 20 years older than her and she is 18, so that part is fine, but pretty much on sight, these two hate each other, and Tinsley does everything that she can to get herself kicked out of school. These two get on each other's nerves. There might be a couple kinky punishments going on, and I just loved how these two got to slowly get to know each other and finally fall for each other. So if you love taboo romances, if you love priest romances, definitely read this one. I really love these two, and the ending was just so perfect. Also on my list is Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. I love this one. Maybe not quite as much as The Hating Game, but I still loved it and gave it 5 stars. It was such an adorable and sweet romance. Like, our hero is pretty much like a teddy bear, a golden retriever who wants to do everything he can to please the heroine. I also really like the setup of this one as well. Ruthie, our heroine, she works in a retirement home. She works at the front desk and is basically a 25-year-old going on 80. Teddy is the son of the new owner of the retirement place, and he becomes an assistant for these two 90-year-old women. Teddy and Ruthie are so freaking adorable together. Like, I had a smile on my face pretty much the whole time I was reading this one. Their characters are just so wholesome. Teddy is crazy charming. I just adore these two so much. And my last two 2021 favorites are not quite romances. There is some, but one is more fantasy, more urban fantasy, and the other one is more contemporary fiction. The contemporary one is Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This book was so ridiculous and over the top, and I loved it. The story and the characters are just pure chaos. We have a heroine, Meddy, who accidentally kills her blind date, and she gets the help of 4 aunties, her mom, and 3 aunts to get rid of the body. Unfortunately, they have to work that weekend, and they have to take the body with them onto the resort where they're working for a wedding. And at the resort, Meddy reunites with her ex-boyfriend, her college sweetheart, and they have a bit of a second chance romance, but the main focus is definitely the aunties and Meddy trying to hide the body from everyone at the resort. So things go absolutely haywire and crazy, and I just had the best time reading it. And the fantasy book is Blood Heir by Alona Andrews. I am such a big Alona Andrews fangirl that even when they write a book with barely any romance, I love it. Blood Heir is pretty much the spin-off of the Kate Daniels series, which is one of my favorite urban fantasy series. This one is the start to Julie series, who is also known as Aurelia. And almost being away for a decade, Julie finally returns home to Atlanta, but she can't go see her parents. She can't go see Kate and Curran. She has to deal with this new enemy all on her own. She does reunite with Derek, who was her childhood crush, her teenage crush, but he doesn't recognize her, and he's also part of a different pact. He is a wolf shifter, so they have to work together to defeat this enemy, whatever, but I love their relationship together. Not that there really is one just yet, but the banter between them is so good. Julie is very much still in love with Derek, and the romance is more a tease than anything, but I just love these characters. I love this world. It was so great to be back in the Kate Daniels world, and I am just dying more of the series. Moving on to the books that did not release this year, but I read this year and fell in love with. First is the Dark Side series by Christy Cunning. This is another reverse harem romance, a paranormal reverse harem romance. There are 4 books in the series. It starts off with 4 psychos, and this series blew my mind. It was unique, exciting, and just so epic. We basically have a heroine who is a ghost. No one can see her, and she's been living with these 4 guys, with our 4 heroes. She haunts our 4 heroes who are like these demon warriors, and they can't see her until one day she saves their lives and she finally turns visible. This series is just so full of twists and turns, a lot of action. Like, the heroine is really a badass. I loved Paka. The reveals about her and the guys were so freaking good. It's also such a funny series. Like, it goes over the top and ridiculous, but I still loved it. And so far, this one is my favorite reverse harem romance. I also loved the Filthy Rich series by Angelina M. Lopez, particularly books 1 and 2. Book 1 is Lush Money and book 2 is Hate Crush. The series follows a royal family, the royal siblings of this small fictional Spanish kingdom. We've got a marriage of convenience in book 1. The heroine is this self-made CEO billionaire who wants a baby, and the hero is of course the prince, and he needs money to save his kingdom. So these two make a deal and it gets so intense and angsty, lots of hate sex. I loved it. Book 2 is a second chance romance about the sister, about the princess. She gets a second chance romance with the rock star who broke her heart over a decade ago. They end up in a fake relationship, and the hero here basically does everything he can to win back the heroine's heart. So there is some good groveling in this one. We have a hero who knows that he lost the best thing that ever happened to him when he broke up with the heroine, and now she hates him. So there's even more angst than book 1. I loved The Redemption by Nikki Sloan, which is book 4 in the Filthy Rich American series, which I do recommend reading in order. It is my favorite of the series. It's got an age gap romance with a anti-hero. McAllister was pretty much a villain in the first 3 books, and now he gets his own romance. Sophia, our heroine, is younger than him by over 20 years, so a humongous age gap, and they both make a deal with each other that leads to Sophia working for McAllister in his office. So age gap, office romance, and anti-hero, which are 3 of my favorite things. The steam was amazing here. I mean, usually it is with Nikki Sloan, but McAllister, oh my god, I love this man. The whole series is great. I highly recommend it if you love lots of steam and lots of twists and turns in your romances, but The Redemption is definitely my favorite. I also loved Twisted Pride by Cora Riley. This is pretty much my favorite Cora Riley book so far. I have not had the best luck with her books, but this one hit so good. It's book 3 in the Kimura Chronicle series. You probably could read it as a standalone. I only read book 2 before reading this one, but it is about the capo of the Kimura mafia family, Remo. It's a dark kidnapping romance. Remo literally kidnaps the heroine on her wedding day. It's enemies to lovers. Remo kidnaps Serafina as revenge. He is easily the craziest one of his family, but I loved him. I loved how much he loved his family, his brothers. The kidnapping part was pretty fun, especially since Serafina never really backed down from Remo. Like, these are 2 very strong characters who go head to head. It was just a really, really good mafia romance, a kidnapping mafia romance. A fantasy romance that I loved is A Promise of Fire by Amanda Boucher. This is the first book in a trilogy, and you definitely need to read the series in order. It follows the same characters, the same couple. I love this one. I had so much fun reading it. It's actually another kidnapping romance. The hero is this alpha warlord who kidnaps the heroine because she's known as something called a kingmaker, and he needs her to save the kingdoms. Kat and Griffin are so great together. I love the banter between them. Kat pretty much does everything she can to escape Griffin, but she slowly ends up falling for him instead. The secondary characters were also so great. There's some mythology in this world as well, like the Greek gods and Olympus are part of this world. There's lots of great action here as well. It was so perfectly balanced between like the fantasy and action and the romance. And kidnapping aside, Griffin falls so hard for Kat, and I love to see that. Another old historical romance that I loved was Annie's Song by Katherine Anderson. This book was so freaking sweet, and it just took me on a roller coaster of emotions. The heroine Annie is deaf, but because of her parents, she is also mute. She doesn't talk. The beginning, the prologue is rough. Annie ends up getting raped and she gets pregnant, and that's where the hero steps in to offer to marry her. Alex, the hero, and the rest of the town don't know that Annie is deaf and just think that she has a mental illness. But slowly after Alex and Annie marry, he finally realizes that she's actually just deaf, and he pretty much does everything he can to make Annie happy. Alex is such a sweet guy, a very nice guy, and the romance is very slow but so heartwarming. So many people have recommended this to me, and I'm so glad I finally read it because I just loved it so much. Another historical romance that blew me away this year was Devil's Bride by Stephanie Lawrence. First of all, the banter. I mean, if you couldn't tell, I love a book when it has good banter. We have a governess heroine and a duke hero who has sworn never to marry, but then he meets the heroine and of course now wants to marry her. Devil does everything he can to get Honoria to marry him, but Honoria has things in her past that prevent her from saying yes, so she does everything she can to say no. Reading these two was like reading about an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Like, these two go head to head, and it was so entertaining to read. I just loved Devil and Honoria so much. It is the first book in a series, and I'm so excited to read more from Stephanie Lawrence. And the final book on my list of my favorite books of 2021 so far is Brother Song by TJ Klune. I finally got to finish up the Green Creek series, and this last book was so freaking perfect. These characters and I had gone through so much throughout the series. All these bad guys, so many people dying, and I finally got to the last book and I loved it. It's an paranormal romance series, a wolf shifter series. One of our heroes here is actually a feral wolf. If you love feral wild characters, you will love Gavin. Gavin and Carter have been a long time in the making. Gavin has pretty much been following around Carter and protecting him throughout the series in his feral wolf form. And it turns out Gavin is a guy, he's a shifter, and Gavin and Carter are mates. I won't say too much about it because a lot of things from the earlier books, which you do need to read before this one, a lot of those things of course lead up to this final book, to this conclusion, but it was truly such a wonderful ending to the series. Gavin and Carter were perfect, and I just loved being with the Bennets in general. If you love shifter romances, I cannot recommend this series enough. Those were all of my favorite books that I've read so far this year. I mean, I do have a couple other favorites, but I'm just gonna stick to 20 for this list. Let me know if you read any of these books, if you also love them. Feel free to share your favorite books so far this year, maybe like a top 3, and also let me know your thoughts on whether I should do like a top 21 books of the year or a top 15 books of the year when we finally get to the end of 2021. I'm never sure how many books exactly I should do for those kinds of lists. As always, links to all the books will be down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!